Hi and welcome to today's episode of Live Healthy Now. And today's episode is a very different one to anything that I've done before. It's very exciting because I'm here with three lovely guests, not just one guest today. You're getting four for the price of one or two, as it might often be. So I have three amazing ladies who volunteered to jump on the podcast for this week's episode to help recognise, celebrate and support the Global Awareness Day for Menopause. So what we've decided to do is have a kind of coffee style chat, pretend we're in a Starbucks or your other favourite coffee venue, and you're here joining four friends who are talking all things menopause and women's health, and let's just see where it goes. So I have with me Shakira, Helen and Sam. Thank you, first of all, for joining and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
You're all very welcome. So, to kick off, maybe we should just share a little bit about what we've known about menopause as we were growing up and approaching it. Just for the record, we're all somewhere in the menopause journey, so we're all very experienced personally with it. But maybe start with you, Shakira. What did you know about it when you were younger? What were you told about it by maybe your mum or your other, female family members?
I'm perimenopausal. I started at 39. I'm now 42, so I'm 2 years and a bit in. I think looking back to when my mum used to talk about it, it was very much known as the change. Back then, she definitely, because when we're talking and reflecting back now, there was no mention of perimenopause. That word wasn't on anyone's radar. It was just, you're having a moment, midlife, you're going through the change. And like I said, speaking to my mum, she's been very open, which is amazing, because when I realised what was happening to me, we were both like, no, you're too young, like this could not be happening. But obviously now, through educating myself and the women I work with, we realise it's totally normal. But I just feel back then people weren't talking about it, not like now. I'm talking about it all the time. It's all over my social media. My 19-year-old daughter, when I hear her talking to her friend, she's like, maybe your mum's in perimenopause, it sounds like the symptoms. Yeah, seriously, she's picked up so much now. So she's talking openly about it. This is probably too much information. I'm on a dating app at the moment. I was talking to somebody and he was like, what do you do? And then I explained what I do and he was like, wow, why do women need a coach for menopause? So then when I explained, it was really like, not in a rude way, he said it in a real lovely way. So then when I explained it, he was like, oh my gosh, more men need to know about this. So it's really good now we're seeing more people opening up and talking about it, but definitely there's still a lot of taboo. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stigma in certain communities where women don't want to open up and talk about it. But I think we're slowly seeing the difference compared to, like I say, when I think back to when my mum was, as it was then, going through the change. She didn't really have any support. She was just told to get on with it. HRT then wasn't really an option. I don't even know really if she actually went to her doctors. She just bought this book, if anyone's heard of it. It's called Eat to Beat the Menopause. And it changed everything for her. She completely changed her nutrition. She started exercising more. So she back then, so she's 69 now, and I think she started going through it maybe 42. We've worked it out. She just decided to change her nutrition, stop drinking alcohol, stop smoking, and then just start exercising more. So she was already doing those things, but she definitely suffered. So I think looking back and watching how she suffered, I was like, there is no way I'm suffering. Like, you don't earn a medal to suffer with menopause, whereas I think a lot of women still think suffering's normal. Let me just get on with it.
Yeah, that's actually very progressive for that. Back then, as you say, for that age, if you think 25, 28 years ago, that's quite forward thinking to realise maybe I can change what I eat and exercise. And so that's amazing. And for you to then have been part of that, that's great. And so, Helen, I know you have, I don't know if your daughter's an older teenager or early 20s, is she? So that's interesting what Shakira said about her daughter starting to talk about it. How was that with you?
Yeah, definitely. I think, we have conversations, when I'm not feeling great, like she can be like, oh, is that a symptom of perimenopause, do you think? And then I'm kind of like, Yeah, actually, and she recognises that I'm in that perimenopause phase. You know, I'm 46, and I think I've probably been in it, if I'm honest, probably about 3 or 4 years of it gradually, you know, getting the symptoms, you know, more anxiety, all of those things. And it's good to be able to say to her, actually, that this is part of it, but we can do things to make change. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And how about you, Sam? What did you know from your mum growing up? Was it a taboo subject?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Nicola. It was. So I'm 54 next month, and I'm post-menopause. And when I was growing up, which was in the 70s and 80s, just didn't get talked about at all. My mum she had a surgical menopause because she had a hysterectomy in her mid-30s. And so, you know, all of that happened, you know, in that period of her life. And that happened very soon after I was born. So I didn't even experience that because I was like a bairn sort of thing. But I also lived, aside from the fact that it didn't get talked about, again, like Shakira said, it was called The Change. But I wasn't in, I'm sort of like, my family didn't really talk about all sorts of subjects like the change, sex, pregnancy, any of those, drugs, you know, it just was, they weren't subjects that were talked about really back then. So yeah, I really had no knowledge of it at all, and I, you know, and even growing up, not really, because it isn't really until recently, you know, perhaps over the last sort of 10, you know, 15 years that it's really started to be spoken about. So I started to experience symptoms and had no idea that I was in perimenopause, because like all I knew was the change, and it was hot sweats when you were in your 50s.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I know, and yeah, that's what's kind of harmed us in a way, because we've just had this belief that it was going to be all about the hot sweats, and for me, it was definitely the mood change. I've got this memory of my mum almost like literally rubbing her hands in glee going, wait until it's your turn, you know, like that, because she was so bad. And I think I was so bad as a teenager, you know, I started to rebel when I got to that 15, 16-year-old point. And that was probably the worst time it could have happened for her, because that's, you know, when she was struggling the most. And so, yeah, it was the change, it's awful, it's hot flushes, and it's year old.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're over the hill, aren't you?
End of life.
End
of.
of. Yeah.
What
I remember
been?
that. Yeah, growing up of like, well, this is it. Like, you know, you get to the change and your life's just, that's it now. And it's like, and I do remember that sort of negative feeling around the menopause. And I, you know, my mum did really suffer. And I look back now and think, you know, quite often that she'd be quite tearful, moody, and at the time I never really understood why, and it was never talked about. And it was, you know, menopause was this really dark, horrible thing where you get hot sweats and you know, your period's all over the place, and you know, you just go into a dark place. And that's kind of how I saw it, and you just accepted that. It was like, well, that's just what happens. But you know, being able to see now when we educate ourselves actually how much we can do to help ourselves. But I think back then, like for my mum, it was like, well, that's it. You just have to accept that this is what's happening and you can't change it.
That's it.
And I think
accept it.
It's sad, isn't it, that, as you said, Shakira, your mum didn't go for any help at the doctors. And back then, for many women, it was the attitude of, well, I just have to make it the best of it sort of thing. I've just got to put up with it and make it, you know, live as well as I can. And I know certainly from when I started work, probably back like 25 years ago, a couple of women I worked with who were going through it would talk about it, but in a kind of mocking type of way, because I don't think they felt comfortable, and it was embarrassing. They'd be go, oh, I'm having another one of me hot flushes, and oh, do you know, it's just the way I am, I'm getting old, and so you learn those things, and then we've taken all of those on board to make it something that we should be scared about and dread.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So this brings us on to one of the questions that someone asked, which was about how will I know when I'm in perimenopause? And you mentioned, one of you, perimenopause is a really new term. I don't think I'd heard about it until 2-3 years ago. I think it was as I came into this space, if I'm honest. So it's a very new word for us to be using, and it thankfully is being put out and shared much wider. There's lots of talk and different things happening, like TV programs and books and podcasts and so on, events even, to help raise this awareness of perimenopause. But the challenges, as some of you've mentioned, we think the symptoms to watch out for are those ones we've heard about from the past, like hot flushes, the mood swings. But actually there's so many more symptoms. I mean, the list isn't even defined in a number sense. Some people say there's 37, some people say there's 65. I've heard Dr. Louise Newson, who's obviously a very big menopausal advocate and support globally, but based in the UK, will say there's, definitely 70, 80 plus symptoms. And the ones that she recently stated from a study they've done that were at the top of the list were the psychological ones.
Yeah.
Hot flushes were way down the list.
Yeah.
And so this is really hard. And Shakira, you said you were late 30s. Helen, you think you were mid 40s. I'm 47. Yeah. I don't know, there's many things I've had that I could say earlier, but definitely for me, the past 8 months have really become apparent I'm perimenopausal.
Yeah.
So it's hard, isn't it, to know, like, because there's not a defined age. They're actually saying early 40s could be quite typical now for things to change.
So I think I would say, in answer to that question, and what I preach a lot, you probably see me preaching on my social media, I always say to women from 35, and they're like, what? Are you serious? And I'm like, 35 is the point where you need to really start being in tune with your body, listen to your mind, check. If you've never checked what's going on with your menstrual cycle, this is the time now to start keeping a diary, checking what's going on with your cycle, checking in with yourself and not being afraid to realise, oh, maybe I weren't having those emotions before. And it's not saying you're going through and like waking up every day going, is this it? Am I in perimenopause? Because you're never truly going to know. I say I was 39, but if I really, really think back, there maybe was a chance I could have been like late 37. I'm thinking around 37, 38, I started to experience a bit of rage and I didn't know why, but I just thought it was because my contraception wasn't right. And I think a difficult thing as well, if you're like me, I'm on the Mirena coil and I have been for a long time. So the thing of checking your cycles can be really difficult. And that was the first thing the doctor said to me, what about your cycles? And I was like, have you not read my notes? I'm on the Mirena coil, I don't have cycles, but I can tell you all these different things have been happening to me, because I think you need to really make sure you're aware of what this can be subtle change. And like you said, hot flashes, I didn't even start getting them until a year into my menopause. It wasn't the first year. Mine was recurring UTI, serious bloating, all other things that you would never associate with, as now we know it's called perimenopause. So I think you're never going to exactly know, but if you don't check in with yourself, your cycles, your weight gain, we have to be honest, like the measurement of your waist is a very big indicator. Your energy levels, aches and pains, these are things that people don't talk about enough. Forgetting your sentences. I just thought it was, for me, I thought it was COVID, and I was teaching loads online. So even when I would be teaching an exercise class, I've got my class written out and I'm like, bloody hell, I'm still forgetting my words. I'm just checking that one's all right. So really, like, not scaring yourself, because I don't want to scare people, but I just think women in their mid-30s do need to start engaging in this conversation. And the more you're aware of it possibly happening, then the more you can start to make those subtle tweaks to your nutrition, the subtle tweaks to your, the way you move your body, and just be aware, really. And they do need to engage in the conversation, because they may not even suffer. And this is the thing I say to people, not everyone's going to suffer, but you will experience some of the symptoms, whether it's mild, whether it's moderate, or whether it's extreme. You will experience them. So just pay attention to what they are, pay attention to your body, document everything, so that when you do present to the doctors, and this isn't me slagging off GPs, But I just know from my experience, I had to come with my evidence because I was being fobbed off. You're too young. You might want to have children. I'm like, trust me, I've got one. I don't want any more. Like, my daughter was 18 then, well, 17 then. Why am I going to be having more children then? So I know I'm like doing this, but just come with it. And also what I do say to people is think about maybe one day you ate this and then the next day you felt a bit funny. If you start to see that pattern as well, that also can be an indicator, because we know that, even though I still drink coffee, it triggers hot flushes. Alcohol is not our best friend anymore. But if because I'm thinking, my hangovers were starting to get, not like I was drinking loads, but I just thought, it's because I exercise so much, I can't. But it was actually my body now beginning to say, you can't really process alcohol because you're in perimenopause, babes.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? It's like just listening out and not to be scared of listening out, because then you can take action. Yeah. Otherwise, we just end up suffering.
And has anyone done anything that's helped them to track? If you use something, Sam, you're nodding. Have you done that?
Yeah, I did once. Obviously, once I knew what was happening, because it did take me. It was actually somebody else that said to me, "Think you might be in perimenopause, Sam."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Because and it was very much the emotional side of things and the mood swings, aside from the physical symptoms. But the thing that I used once I knew about it was I used the Balance app, which is
it's a good one.
It is great because that you can log it all there, and anything that isn't there to be logged, you can write down and keep a track of that as well. So that's what I did, in order to be able to then have a conversation with my GP and the menopause practitioner at the clinic, who unfortunately is no longer there, which is another problem that we're facing as women, is we don't get the support in the clinics. But it was helpful to have that information, and I would recommend that app to anybody, just for information as well, and for community, and just getting known. But I would say, like Shakira, be in tune with your body, because you know your body better than anybody. Yeah. And if you're feeling changes physically or mentally, something's going on. But yeah, I did. So sorry, to answer your question, Nicola, is yes, the Balance app is what I found it, priceless for me, and I've recommended it to lots and lots of people.
Yeah, and I'll pop the link in the show notes to it, because I recommend it as well. And the great thing you can do is download from there. Shakira, if you couldn't see, was holding almost a pile of paper. So you can actually download like a report from the Balance app, which summarises everything. And that's what I've said to a lot of women, is have that when it, we're saying go to your GP. Not everyone will seek medical support, but we've touched on this. You don't have to suffer if you are struggling. It isn't about getting that medal because you've managed it without HRT. You can go for help even if it's not HRT you want, but take the information, because I know in my own experience, I haven't had an easy experience with my doctors. There isn't a female health specialist. There's not a menopausal qualified doctor.
And do you know what? Actually, when you say that about being there isn't a female, I actually went to a nurse practitioner who was a female, and I used to be a nurse, and I'd actually worked with her previously, and she was, "No, you're too young. Are you having hot flushes?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Well, your periods," and the thing was, why I went was my periods were so heavy. Like, I couldn't go out for a walk on the beach with my children, my husband, without having to get changed. It was horrendous. And they were like, "Oh, we'll do your bloods." And actually my iron was low, so I was anemic, which wasn't a surprise because my periods were so horrendous, to the point where it was like, actually, I don't know if I want to go out, because what if, I remember being in Marks and Spencer's looking at things, and I just flooded. And I'm like, my husband had to run off to Superdrug or, go and get me something, because my period had started in the shop. And it was just, so I was going to them saying, look, I definitely think I'm in perimenopause. I was getting palpitations. My breathing was just, and that's actually why I became a breathwork facilitator, because my breathing was so out. So I was telling her all of these things. She was like, yeah, but you're not getting hot flushes. And I was like, well, no. And she's like, well, your period's still regular. It's like, yeah, they're regular, but I'm not even being able to go out. They've suddenly just changed. And even though she was a female in her 40s, she was still like, no, it's. And I just thought, actually, I'm not even going to talk to you about it. So I just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever, it's fine, I'll find somebody else. But that really surprised me in this day and age, as a woman in her 40s, similar age to me, saying no. Sort of dismissing what I was saying. No, you're not in perimenopause because you don't have these two main symptoms, which was irregular periods and hot flushes. But I had all these other symptoms that were just ignored because it was like, well, you haven't got these two things. It's like, so it was really frustrating.
You'll know, having worked in the NHS, there's such a gap in the knowledge that so many people have, whether it's nurses, doctors, just support workers. Some of the people I've spoke to actually on both sides of the fence are people who work in the NHS in different cancer and oncology roles and Macmillan, and then ladies who've had cancer. And that is very scary because a lot of women are going in for treatment for breast cancer, whether it's surgery or chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and then maybe taking medication afterwards. And at no point in that journey has anyone said to them, by the way, you are definitely going to be menopausal, maybe because it's surgical or treatment related, or even just mentioned it, that it could be because of the drugs they take and what happens, and that it might not be a permanent menopause. Obviously we don't want to get into all of this, but it's that lack of qualification and knowledge. And I know some of the doctors who talk a lot now about menopause and give us a lot of support will say that in their training there might be 30 minutes. It's the same as nutrition, as sleep, as exercise, all of the things that actually help you to be healthy are not really trained when you qualify in one of those medical roles. So I think the message is, as we said, know your cycles are a huge one. My cycle definitely changed in terms of my flow. That's been one of my big things. Know your cycle. Even if you haven't got a cycle because of the contraceptive solution you use, just be in touch with yourself, and being in touch with yourself is really important anyway for health, to know what you need, mind and body. But just watching for those things that might not be the things our mothers and history has taught us, with the hot flushes and the moods and the erraticness, but lots of the other things that could easily be missed. One of the things that Go on, Helen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think one of the biggest things for me, and I see it in clients that I work with, is that loss of self. That was the biggest thing for me. I just didn't know myself anymore. Yeah. And I just didn't recognise myself. And I remember saying so much like, this is not me. And I was using that phrase, I don't feel like myself. This is not me to be being like this. So that loss, but of still being unsure of where you go with that. And I had to do a lot of work on myself to work out who I was, and the brain fog, and where I felt really confident in something, maybe delivering a workshop or something. It was like I couldn't even read my notes. It was just like, what is going on? Like, this is not me. Like, normally I'm quite on it, and it was like, I'm reading it, it's not going in. Lack of focus, trying to read a book, like nothing was going in. And just that overwhelming feeling of being on high alert, just that like edginess, like feeling that I could be just tearful at any moment. And I think those symptoms can be really debilitating, as well as the physical stuff of you just losing your confidence. And I've had women that I work with who have almost wanted to quit their jobs because I can't do it anymore, and and they're really qualified and incredible women, but it's been so debilitating that they're like, I can't go into work because I can't focus, I'm not getting the work done that I'm supposed to be doing. I go to speak to people and I've forgotten their names, and they're almost like, I just need to give up, like I need to leave my job, and you know, helping them rebuild their confidence.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest thing that I felt in myself and the women that I see, is that I just don't feel myself. I've lost who I am, and I'm not confident in the things that I used to be able to do.
Yeah, and that's very scary, isn't it? And,
It
and
is.
I've spoke to women the same who have handed their notice in or have been on the verge of, you know, they're still debating whether or not they can continue working. And we know we're hearing lots of figures and reports about women who are leaving the workplace because of this, because some of the symptoms psychologically are really damaging and debilitating, but also some of those physical symptoms. I met a lady who had severe dry eyes and tinnitus, and she was in so much discomfort physically, but also then what it caused mentally, because she was just struggling to find a solution to be able to work. And she said, I've handed my notice in, and she was in a very senior leadership type role. She was 51. And she was like, I don't want to stop working, but I'm going to have to. And that was one of the other questions someone had shared, which is a huge question, but we're talking about this, is will it change your confidence and how much? Because I think I definitely grew up with that fear of I'm going to lose myself, because I definitely saw my mum like really, really struggle. My mum started to really struggle with leaving the house. She had panic attacks. She had to leave work. She had other health things, which now when I look back, I think is that peri or menopausal related. But yeah, I think that's a big fear, isn't it? That whole lack of confidence. And I know, Sam, you've been on a personal journey to really focus on your health and make some changes, haven't you? And I've seen you talk about the shifts that it's had in your confidence and self-belief.
Yeah, absolutely, Nicola. And mine started last year on the 17th of October, and it was interesting to hear Shakira talk about the hangover side of things, because I woke up one morning because I did drink alcohol, and I drank quite a lot because of some of the things that were happening to me in menopause. I wasn't aware of that then, because sometimes you're not aware of the things that you are doing and why you're doing them, because that you're just in it. That was my experience anyway. And I woke up one morning and I thought, oh God, I don't feel very well. And I've never suffered with hangovers. That's another issue for me, is there's no off switch, because when you don't have a hangover, you don't seem to worry about how much you drink. So I woke up and I thought, oh God, I feel really ugh. And I thought, didn't put it down to alcohol, because I'd never had that before. And then the following day I woke up again feeling the same, and I just thought, I think it might be the alcohol, I'm going to give up. And it just stopped that day. It was Wednesday the 17th of October, and I just thought, just going to give up alcohol and see if that helps at all. And then from that day forward, the journey just started. So first of all, I started to feel improvements from the not drinking. So I wasn't getting aches and pains like I had been doing. I was severely overweight. I was very obese. And I'm still overweight at the moment, but back then I was about 18 stone something. I can't remember exactly what it was. That's the first time I've said that publicly, how much that I weigh. And when I stood on the scales, it was a complete shock. Yes, I knew I was overweight, but I thought, I'm about 14 and a half, 15 stone. So when it was like that, it was like, wow, that's a bit of a shocker. And so I gave up the alcohol, and then I started to look at nutrition and started to walk in January. And since then I've lost 6.5 stone. And thank you. And my life has completely changed beyond any recognition. And I think it started with the alcohol, the effect that alcohol has on us when we are experiencing these changes in our hormones. I was not aware of that. So if that is something anybody is experiencing at the moment, I would say look at your intake and see whether maybe that is something to, to change. And I didn't think that I'd ever, I didn't ever see myself as not being a drinker, but, I would never ever go back to it now, because there is so much joy in not drinking, and so much energy that I have, and the experiences that I'm having now, just outweigh the horrible down, low energy, etc. that I felt, this time last year.
That's amazing.
It's
well
incredible to change. Thank you. You helped me with that, Nicola, as well, because kind of like meeting you and you coming to talk with me that time. And I think that's the thing, that's something to take away here, is to nourish yourself with people around you, who have got different experiences to you and different knowledge to you, and that you can learn from. Like, for instance, with you and your nutrition, and then with other people that I know who are alcohol free, and also who know about strengthening and exercise when you're like me in your 50s, then all of that helps, I think, with the moving forward. So the more that we can be out there chatting, the better it is for all of us.
Yeah, which is why I wanted to do this, and I really hope, if you're listening to this and thinking, right, I need to just know a bit more and chat a bit more and work out what it is I need, let this be the start of that. Because when you, as you say, Sam, surround yourself with the right kinds of people, but also conversations and content, we're all on social media, it's part of life. Look at what your feed is made up of and make it a feed that is inspiring, supporting, educating, because the reality is, as women, we are going to change. Menopause is going to change us, and yes, I think they say there's 20 to 25% who don't really have any symptoms, but your hormones are still changing, and so something physically, even if you maybe don't feel it, is changing. And so it's a point in our life where we do have to be very mindful of our physical health and our mental health. But by looking after yourself and having that awareness, there's so much you can gain. So that question about confidence is, I think menopause can impact your confidence, and we know that it does in lots of women, and some women do have very severe psychological and mental symptoms that do have to have a medical intervention and support put in place. But whatever symptoms and experience you have, you can make that less difficult and less challenging and make it a more empowered experience when you do take control. I think that's the message. Is like anything in life, it is what you make it, and it might be a difficult process, and I've certainly felt that the last few months. I've had a really hard few months, but I've always felt like, because I know what I know, and because I've got good habits in place, that I'm in a strong position to work through it, and I have cried in front of the doctor. I didn't expect to, but I'm human, and it's hard. But again, because I know that I feel like I can manage my way through it with the right help.
So,
and that's any last bit of advice? Go on, Helen.
I'll go on, Helen.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's those little tweaks, isn't it? Those little habits, the small things that you can start to change and look at. For me, definitely getting outside more helped me, doing that walking, changing how, looking at my breath, because that was the biggest thing for me. I just felt so crushing here that I was breathing from here all the time, getting panic attacks just when I was driving along, getting palpitations, suddenly not knowing how to go round a roundabout. I mean, it was like, get this panic of like, I didn't know which one to come off, and I'd done it so many times, and it's like, that thing of like, what is wrong with me? But being able to just like take that breath, that pause, to start to change a little bit how I eat, walking a little bit more, the nutrition thing of actually, simple thing of me just changing my breakfast, made a massive difference. You know, I've got young kids as well. I've got, 8-year-old twins. So sometimes I would completely skip breakfast. Sometimes I might just grab, you think it's a nice healthy cereal bar, but it's full of everything. I would just perhaps grab that big mug of coffee, So by changing little tweaks in my day, feels like I'm a little bit more in control, and that these little changes are making a little difference to me. So it's being able to look at your own daily life. Everybody is different, not everybody might want to change their breakfast or their morning routine, but the mornings were really key for me because that was where I was feeling the most crap, if I'm honest. I get up and feel like I've been hit by a bus, and it would just be rush, rush, rush. So for me, just changing that, just getting up a little earlier, taking it a little bit slower, even doesn't matter what the weather is, I still open my back door, stand outside for a moment, take a breath, change what I'm eating, maybe having some eggs or something a bit more protein in the morning rather than just grabbing that cereal bar. These little tweaks allow you to feel like you're in control a little bit more, and that made a massive difference to me. I was like, I actually feel like I'm getting control of things rather than this big perimenopause thing sweeping me off my feet and I'm not knowing what to do with it. It's those little changes, and if you can try and change the little habits, like Sam was saying, not drinking or changing your nutrition slightly, walking more, they all make a difference to how you feel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely. I think, go on. I was just going to add on the confidence thing. I know this sounds a little bit harsh, but what I do say to probably my catchphrase is menopause is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And it really is like what we've said about recognizing it and accepting, because I think if you don't accept it may be this journey for you, because as we know, everyone's journey is different. That's when it's really, really going to have a detrimental impact on your confidence. When I realised what was going on, I was like, woohoo, come on then, bring it on. I'm now going to accept this. I know everyone's very different, but I just found the more that you accept it, it's not going to be easy. And like we've all said about those small changes. Like, for example, now when I'm online a lot, I'm always standing. I'm always move more, sit less, and it makes such a massive difference. If I'm doing an Instagram live, if I'm on Zoom, whatever, I'm standing, because I know for me, if I'm sat down all the time, aches and pains, can't get up, my back, my knees, my this. So like we said about those little changes, and I think this would be a whole other podcast, it's time to scrap that toxic diet culture. All those clubs, I won't mention who, but yeah, we know them. And they're now firing at our perimenopausal, postmenopausal women. Come and join us. This is whatever free, and the catchphrases they use. And we've definitely grown up in that toxic diet culture.
Oh, definitely.
That's one of the things that I'm on a mission to change. Because as you said, Helen, you can't start your day with cereal. That is not what menopausal women should be doing. That even if you just change that one thing.
Yeah, it makes such a difference.
Like Sam said, even if you don't stop alcohol, because I know when you say that to women, they're like, I'll suffer. But even if you know, okay, I want to have a drink, so I'm going to plan my day the next day that I can accommodate for, might be on the toilet a bit more, or I might feel a bit like this. It's planning and having that insight. And I think that acceptance, once you accept your confidence, then you can start to build on your confidence. Like Helen, you said, the breath work, the standing outside. There's so many little things. You don't have to have this whole lifestyle overhaul, but possibly you're working towards it in the long term. Just those little things will make a difference. But I'm glad we're all on the same page about the toxic diet. I'm like, and when I see friends going, guess what, Shaq, I've joined, I'm like, okay, breath. Good luck with that journey.
I think it's about all of it, not just the diet. It's about your long-term view on your life, and that's what you've done, Sam, isn't it? You've got in control. And do you feel as though being intentional about how you want to live has led to that extra boost in confidence and self-worth?
It has, Nicola, definitely. It's helped me to feel more confident, and it's actually helped me to realise as well what I want my life to look like moving forward, longer term as well, and see things, and reflect and see things, maybe a little bit differently than I had been looking at them as well, you know, and even to the point of, you know, changing some things in my professional life as well, you know. So, and just being aware that, you know, it helps you to get in tune. I think it just helps you to be more in tune with the things that are important to you and the things that maybe you'd lost sight of through all of that fog. That actually it's kind of, it helps you to reconnect with the things that are important to you and then make intentional choices about what to do, whatever that is for you, because it's going to be different for all of us. But it's about, you know, just connecting to the things that are important to yourself so that you can move forward confidently, you know. I think to a brighter future, you know, future, you know.
Yeah, because we all want to live all of our life as full as we can. You know, we're not here for half of it. And if you think...
No, I'm only halfway through.
Exactly. Most women are going to start perimenopause. If we said early 40s, the average age we're living to is 86. But women's health span hasn't increased at the same rate our lifespan has. So let's embrace that second half of our life. And I think just to wrap up, the big things that are coming through is the knowledge and awareness to be informed and to take control yourself of how you feel. Understand what's going on, get support, chat like we are, share it. The more honest we are, whether it's about something as embarrassing or what you think is embarrassing, like a dry vagina, or it's about, you know, these crazy mood swings that you're having, you chat to your friends about it, share all of that. And the other things that are really important is the taking control through just the small actions and knowing that all of those small steps and actions and habits add up to the way your life is. So when you change whatever one it is, gradually, one at a time, you'll have a big change, you know, over time. That's the life you're creating for the future. And then the self-acceptance, self-compassion, you know, that's the big thing, isn't it? Is being really aware of it and giving yourself what you need. And for me, today has been amazing. I feel like I'm full, you know, I'm brimming over the top of my cup because having ladies like you who are so aligned to the way that I feel and think and the passion we've all got to help other women is just incredible. And so, like we said, fill your feed, your life with the right types of things, whether that's people, community, your social media, knowledge, the TV you watch, what you listen to, what you read, everything, because that for me has been a huge part of my journey to grow and become a stronger, happier woman. So thank you all massively. I love it. Yes, let's have a picture. We'll wrap it up with a picture and we'll share I'll share everybody's details in the podcast.
Oh, hold on, let me do it that way. There we go.
Notes as well.
That was amazing.
So thank you, everyone.